Hey, happy Monday.
Hello, Therapy Flow community.
Yeah, we're excited to dive in today. We're going to be adding a new weekly segment here that should be pretty spitfire. As people join the group and other places, you guys submit us a lot of questions that we don't always get to in a pragmatic sense. And so we're carving out a chunk on a weekly basis. Just sit down, spend a few minutes answering the questions that you guys actually submitted or sent us live in full form with both of us on here. So we're going to be going through some great heavy hitting questions today on a mix of imposter syndrome to advertising best practices to SEO to business fundraising. So stick around to hear some great answers and hopefully insight to the questions you're asking. And if you have future questions you want to submit, hop in the community, post them in the group, shoot us a message, put them in the form, whatever it is, and we'll make sure we get to them in this weekly segment. So without further ado, I'm going to, get the first question going. How important is virtual assistance in private practice, Attilio?
It's as important as I think you want it to be. So virtual assistants are incredibly powerful in two scenarios. One where you don't have a lot of cash to hire someone offhand, and two where you need to reduce the amount of hours you're working on either repetitive tasks or tasks that you could spend 30 minutes training weekly and get 5 or 25 hours out weekly. So they're great ways to kind of magnify your skills and abilities. However, the downside to virtual assistants is typically they need training. They need regular training. I'm talking like 3 to 5 times a week training,
Yeah.
at least like certainly at first until they're very comfortable, so probably for your first few months. And then the other downsides would be so that's a time, like you still have to invest time in them. The other downsides is it depends what you need them for and what expectations. Oftentimes they're contractors, and so although you have a lot of say in how they're trained and what's expected of them, you need to have those expectations. And so if you yourself are not super good at the role, I would say it might be tough. So virtual assistants, I guess to kind of give it a recap, virtual assistants are important. I'd put them maybe at a 4 out of 10 importance, maybe as far as like blaring important things. I don't know if you have another point of view. There's a lot of third party options that do what VAs do, possibly better, and you don't have to spend a lot of time on them, aka using like a third party provider to do your admin or a third
Right.
party provider to do your billing or credentialing. So oftentimes there's better options
Yeah.
depending on what you need, especially if you have some focus on what it is that you want
Yeah.
to
I'd
achieve.
just say the more direct and measurable the outcome is that you can have them do, the more success you're going to have them be inside of your practice. And so if it's clear, if it's measurable, if it's actionable, if it's cyclical, those will make good tasks to get a virtual assistant for. If it's abstract, if it's strategy, if it's marketing best practices, if it's digital design, those are going to be things that it's really going to see a difficulty getting from a virtual assistant compared to a person who has expertise in that area that you're hiring for. But as we kind of think about that, Maria asks us, how do I market for my self-pay practice? And we have a couple marketing questions here, so we'll park on marketing for a second.
Okay, cool. How do I market for my self-pay
Yep.
practice? Okay.
Cash pay practice.
Cash pay, guys. This is the money making question. Everybody asks it. And I hate to tell you, it's kind of exactly the same as you would market for an insurance practice. Guys, you have to get attention on yourself. You have to get attention on yourself. The thing that differentiates insurance and cash pay typically is the care plan that you guys can deploy. So the saying, I work for insurance company, or I work for clients, not insurance companies, is kind of like the cash pay motto, I would say.
Yeah.
And so you have the advantages of being able to present a care plan as part of your marketing, or like why you guys are better than XYZ, or why you have a great option as cash pay and why cash pay is part of that. Um, but when you're looking at advertising or marketing more for cash pay or insurance, it's really pretty similar. Like you're doing the same things. You have to turn a stranger into someone you're talking to, and you have to talk to that person and get them into your practice. I would say the more burden exists on the sales side of things, there's a little
Yep.
bit more burden on sales for cash pay. Um, but all salesmanship here is, it comes down to professionalism. It comes down to how you are uniquely suitable to overcoming the person's problems. AKA, maybe you have immediate availability. Maybe you
Yeah.
have more flexibility in your care. Maybe you can provide 6 stars of care instead of 5 stars of care. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Be creative.
And I
Okay.
would say that over time, this isn't something that you can just like flip a switch on, but cyclical, consistent relationship and networking will pay you dividends, especially as a solo practice. If you live in the same community for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years plus, and you make it highly relational with businesses and clients and schools and otherwise, because people, a cash pay practice succeeds when people want to work with you to see results rather than just any therapist. And there's ways to accomplish that in many forms of marketing, but figure out how to get people to refer you to other people. And you're going to see a lot of organic outcomes, as a lot of good solo practice cash pay therapists have. That's not a sustainable way to build a big, large group practice, probably. It's part of it. And then the other thing is beyond this burden of sales, your volume. The biggest difference that we've seen with cash pay practices is you just typically need to do more volume of marketing. More of the market wants to pay insurance. Some of the market can pay cash, and some of the market are willing to pay cash even if they want to use insurance. And so you have to advertise just to a higher degree. Let's talk about some of those advertisings. So, uh, let's see here. Julie asks, I'm very new to marketing. Any pros or cons to using Google Ads? Great question, Julie. Um, Let me give you a few pros. Something like paid ads is scalable, meaning you can put $1 in, you can put $100 in, you can put $10,000 in, and we've seen practice owners do it all and then some, and get a good return on investment from their marketing, like Google Ads. We love paid ads and we love talking about paid ads because you can control how much money you invest in that. And Google, as well as the market, tells us what is working. If you put an ad out and you spend $100 on it and no one clicks on it, it's not a very good ad. Or it's not a very good offer, or the people don't want your service, right? We get immediate feedback, right? So if you're like new to marketing, you're like, man, my offer, my marketing, my X, Y, and Z, like, does it work? Throwing some money at it and getting eyeballs on it can be a very fast way to do it. And then if it does work, continuing to spend money on it, you can see a return on investment. Tilio, what are some of the cons to Google Ads?
The cons are, you need to have a website.
Yeah.
So there's a investment barrier. You need to have a website, and then I would also say a big con for Google Ads is you can't be so niched that, like, if no one is
Mm,
searching for the thing, no one's searching for the thing, my guy. So like we have to be able to work with a larger paying group. We also have to be able to work with a larger group of people. I would say the average of the market goes to Google, searches, finds your website, and then reaches out to you. And so if you're so specialized, or your rate is so extreme that it would be unreasonable for someone to work with you, or you're presenting like that, then that's where it becomes a little bit of a sticky situation. We found therapists go out there just expecting extremely qualified clientele to come through Google Ads, and guys, it's just really expensive.
yeah.
Because they're expecting high qualification early without getting on the phone with someone, and that's where you'll typically fail. So there's a little bit of a balance that you have to have between being able to work with the average person who's searching. That does not mean that your rates, like, that does not mean that you cannot have high rates and be a Google ad person. It just means that you have to be a little bit creative on how you market and sell through Google Ads. Um, AKA, just be willing to get them on the phone and talk to them,
Yeah.
so that you can walk them through the sales process. So I'd say that those are probably the biggest cons for Google Ads. It's a little bit more expensive than something like maybe Facebook ads, and it's a little bit slower than something like Facebook ads.
Yep.
And then you can't really present an offer through Google Ads. Those may be the biggest downsides as far as marketing is
Yeah.
concerned.
And because you put the caveat, Julie, that I'm very new to marketing, I want to add two other things to that. I want to reiterate Attilio's comment of needing a website. You probably need a great website or a well oiled landing page at minimum to send the Google ads to. And if that's not in place, the ads probably won't convert. So that can be like a huge barrier to success for some counselors, is spending weeks or months trying to like get the perfect website, and then it doesn't work for their Google ads and otherwise, and can be huge cost and process. There's some other places that might deserve your attention if you're marketing yourself for the very first time. And then the other thing with Google Ads is it's just pay to play, and that's both the best pro and the best con at all at the same time. So if you have some cash to play with and risk and do, figuring out Google Ads or paid ads can be great. If you don't invest time into your practice in other places of marketing instead of money on ad spend, if you don't have anything to like risk or to learn the lessons that come with launching something like Google Ads. As a follow up, someone else asked, how can I improve my SEO?
Hey, there's good news for you. There's a lot of ways to improve your SEO. So to start with SEO, the biggest place that I think it requires almost no technical expertise. It requires almost no effort in general, other than just sitting down and doing the work, is blogging.
Yeah.
So blogging, like, just create content and focus on making your website bigger. So if you kind of think of your website as like a net. Okay. If you have like one or two pages, you have a very small net, right? Maybe it's just like a little triangle net that you're trying to catch
Yep.
things with. If your website has like hundreds of pages, hundreds of blogs, you have a super big net that you can cast out and catch people with. So the more content, the more pages your website has, the higher likelihood that you rank, and the higher likelihood that something of context is present for someone who's searching for you. So
Yeah.
start with blogging. That's a really, really easy one. As far as like some of the more technical things, there's two other technical sides, the big three, we'll call them. One is going to be your on-site SEO. That's the keywords that you're actually using, the way that you're structuring your pages, the additional information that you're providing. If you're using something like WordPress, there's plugins like Yoast, Yoast, that let you do this. It allows you to add stuff. It provides you like little meters to see like how good it is. But guys, remember, they're just robots. They're trying their best, but it's not perfect. So
Especially
go,
for therapy niche specifically.
yeah, try to do your best with that. I'll give you a quick, fast tip for on-page SEO. Set up a Google Ads account. It's completely free. So go to ads.google.com, and inside of the tools and settings section, there is a tool called the Keyword Planner. And you can look in
Yep.
there to find keywords that have high volume, that have, whatever cost per click, so that way you can kind of gauge, like, is this an expensive keyword? Are people bidding on this keyword? If
Yeah.
it's got a high cost per click, usually that means people are bidding on it, which means it's probably getting them clients. Okay. So you can kind of do a little bit of research through there. When you're first starting out, focus on like 25 or 30 keywords.
Yeah.
Okay. And they can be like location specific. They don't have to be super location specific. They can be a little bit more broad. Like statewide is usually pretty helpful for SEO. Then, so beyond the on-page SEO work, that's a little bit more technical. There's off-page SEO work, which requires you to get like peer reviews, essentially thumbs up from other people's websites,
Yeah.
aka this one's definitely the more hard one, because you have to establish relationships with uh, web admins, essentially, to say like, hey, you're using
Yep.
this resource, I've got a great resource for you too, would you link our resource instead of the resource you're currently linking?
Yeah.
So it takes a little bit more grunt work. You can also pay here, so you can pay to play on these links. It's an easy way to get quick wins on some of these links, but it costs you money. So
Yep.
depends how far and deep you want to go on some of these tactics. The easiest one, and since most therapists aren't so competitive, the easiest one is just go ahead and blog.
Yeah. One or two blogs a week, 500 to 2,000 words. You can look up a few YouTube videos or whatever, like what makes a good SEO blog for Google, right? Educate yourself just for a few minutes on like what's the form or the structure. The practices we have seen do this or pay for someone to do this for them across 6, 12, 18 months, but like super consistent, perform beautifully amongst other things. And as a cash pay, self-pay practice, if you're looking for a strategy, this is a really good long-term investment bucket to put put some cash monthly or put some time in monthly for you and your team. Changing tunes a little bit from marketing, Robin asks imposter syndrome, how to move past your own fears of failure. Attilio, do you struggle or did struggle at any point in business with your own fear of failure?
100%. And actually, my imposter syndrome presented a little bit differently. I'll say I'll kind of give you my experience. I mean, imposter syndrome is a deep topic, and you could certainly hire a professional to help you with this, because it can be grave. It can be pretty grave. So I don't want to downplay that. I'll tell you how my imposter syndrome presented. My imposter syndrome went. How can I, like me, a person who doesn't know much, how can I, one, help other people? How can I know that I'm doing a great service or work or job? How do I know that I'm doing my best? And I think a lot of this came back to me in, I know that I'm doing my best because I'm a person who does their best. So I think, like, one, changing my identity around my type of imposter syndrome. And then, quite frankly, I think a lot of it comes down to competence creates confidence, and confidence totally destroys imposter syndrome.
Yeah,
Um, so if you feel like you're, if it comes up from incompetence, in a lot of ways, I had some incompetence stuff. I had some incompetent stuff. I didn't know how to be a business owner. I didn't know how to be a salesperson, or how to be a marketer, or how to be anything for my businesses. Um, and so a lot of it just came down to acknowledging the fact that maybe I'm incompetent in certain areas, and I just have to grow my competence, and my confidence will follow. And
yeah,
so what did I do? I sat down at the gym, I started doing the curls, right? I started doing more of the actions. I started just trying to run face first into the fires, because there's fires that are inevitable. And slowly you get burned, but you learn, and you get burned and you learn, and you get burned and you learned, and then you have chef hands,
yeah,
that are iron hands, right? So that would be my best advice for imposter syndrome.
yeah. Great advice there. And I think similarly, everyone, either in big ways or little ways, has a fear of failure. So I think just like owning it and recognizing it and being honest that it exists at every single level. Right now, there are things on my to-do list that are like growth things, right? About 6 months ago, I've started to push really hard into like conference speaking gigs and other things, and I now have some stuff lined up, but like putting myself out there to get on the stage and get some of those things lined up was a new mode of growth of presenting my information and expertise in a different format, right? And there was some like fear of failure. What if they say no? What if people don't want me? What if, so it happened at all stages of business ownership. Failure are your checkpoints to success. And this is the thing that's helped me get through it. Is failures are your checkpoint to success. The faster I fail, and not really the faster I fail, no one wants to fail, nor should you fail per se, but the faster you try the thing that you want to try and see the result come back to you, either as positive or negative, gives you the space and gives you the information you need to make that next thing successful, right? So if you're like, oh man, I really don't want to launch this private practice. What if no one comes? Well, if no one comes, great, that was not the outcome you wanted, but why is that the case? What did we learn there? How do we improve? You still want the result. You still want a full, thriving practice that you can succeed in, and that's possible because people do it every day. So what were you missing? What were we missing in that equation? And now we have the information that, oh, something was missing and that wasn't there until we just did it, until we tried. Patrick from All Things Private Practice, he's got a great group, some great like workshops on imposter syndrome. He talks a lot about this. Maybe go check him out because he has this something about like be afraid, but do it anyways, right? Just like do it and see what happens. And more likely than not, we talk to practice owners every day. We have several in our program, that have even posted some great numbers in the group that they were like, I just didn't know this was possible, or I was afraid X, Y, and Z. And then they had their first 12K month, or they hired 10 clinicians in like 4 months and scaled to multi six figures quickly, right? Like, because they just did it and they were a little afraid and, knotted up, and then it like worked out for them because the competency was already there. And it was the other end of success, right? They tried it and it worked out for them. So
I might add one more thing to this. All you can be is yourself. I don't necessarily like the phrase "fake it till you make it," um, because I think that you can play into your strengths, your current strengths, who you are currently, um, at a much better degree, because more people buy into authenticity and more people buy into just the fact that you are like telling them the truth. And so I think by playing into like actually who you are, where you're at, like, hey, I am a new business owner. That's why I'm offering this type of situation. I think that goes a lot further. So don't downplay, like, just because you have imposter syndrome doesn't mean you can't make things happen. And then I'd also say, yeah, to piggyback on Josh's failure points, um, you fail on a spectrum.
yeah,
Like nine times out of 10, the things that exist in this world, most things are not complete failure, complete success. It's not a light switch. Most failure is on a spectrum. And so even if you literally fail at the 1 out of 10 mark, you fail and it was a big failure, at least you pushed the button. Or at least you got the info that you need to be able to make a change to improve. And so
yeah,
fail and fail on a spectrum until you move all the way up to the 10 out of 10, which you will inevitably. So stop saying, I don't have the experience. Just start saying, I don't have the experience yet.
yeah. That's great. That's great. So we've got three last little questions or buckets here. So we had a couple people this past week actually ask us, what's the best way to go about getting funding, or the best way to like access startup funds. Last week we did a live with Julie from Green Oak Accounting, and she actually talked a little bit about growing at the speed of cash. So maybe
Yep.
go check that out, because you gave a great perspective on why therapists should probably grow at the speed of like free cash flow in their business. That's how Attilio and I more often
Of
through
course.
the last
Yeah.
number of years have grown our business. We haven't taken on debt in any significant manner through the years to grow this business, and I'm a huge proponent of that, especially for the model. Now there are caveats to that of investing in a real estate asset that could produce a lot of profit, or a good brick and mortar system, and then that's traditional real estate. And then we know some practice owners that have gotten the SBA loans in order to like acquire. There's some loans out there to help you acquire like an existing business with cash flow and some of those things. But the best way I can answer this, especially since Attilio and I personally have mostly grown at the speed of cash, and we've seen most of our most successful practices do the same, that funding usually is not necessary to receive the result that you want, even if it's a little bit slow at first until you start to grow the cash initially.
Yeah, guys, this goes for every service business. The cost to start a service business is almost zero. So in my head,
Except
there's
for your
almost,
education, right?
yeah, except for your
The
education.
80,
Yeah,
$150,000 you just spent on your undergraduate, master's, and maybe
yeah,
doctorate, small
yeah.
things.
Other than the cost to understand how to procure the service, and maybe like your Wi-Fi and a computer and your EHR, uh, you should not be seeking funding.
Yeah,
That's my wholehearted belief. If you are seeking funding, it needs to be like a bigger business play where you're purchasing a business or you're purchasing some real asset that you'll make the money on top
yeah,
of.
yeah.
So
We've
that'd be my biggest
Yeah,
recommendation.
we've seen counseling practices like, buy a building and then rent out half of it to other
Yeah.
other renters other than their practice, right? Great, it cash flows immediately and you have a place for your business. There's some great ways to go about doing this. So keep that in mind. And then, a couple other things here. Nikita asks us, can registered slash provisionally licensed, postgraduate interns be employed as 1099s?
I think that's more state by state basis.
Yeah. So
I know in California you cannot. It has to be W-2 for everyone. So ask a lawyer. Maybe would be the best question. Or if we had more context, we might be able to help you out with a
yeah,
few.
we know lots of practices and lots of states have postgraduate interns in their practice as 1099s. doing sessions, other things, various forms of associates and such. So it's certainly a possibility, but it depends on your state. And with the caveat of like, what must you do to figure this out, right? Contact your lawyer, find another group practice in the area and see if they're employing any, right? And maybe that will be a good indication. And then take it from there. And then it's going to be, if you can, it's going to be a simple process of just drawing up a 1099 and hiring. And then from there, that's the questions we have for today.
Guys, awesome questions.
Yeah.
Oh, I love
So,
this segment. I love it. I love going
so
so deep on these.
next Monday, we're going to do this again. We're going to answer some questions. We're going to dig deep and figure out and answer what you guys need. So if you have anything else, leave a comment for next week on this video if you want us to include it. Or like I said, shoot us a message, post in the Facebook group. And if you just can't wait, post in the Facebook group and maybe we'll get an answer for you. And the last little piece of information, guys, is if you want structured, consistent help on implementing correct marketing for the first time that works, right? In a systematic, good process, for questions like how do I get new self-pay clients and implement sales process? Answers on that type of business development is what we spend all day, every day doing in the day-to-day business of therapy flow with practice owners. So shoot us a message if you want more information about how we can maybe help you in a more direct, visceral sense than some of these, one-off questions for the ones that require more context and some of those things. So
We'll see y'all next